And now it's time for another case law update. Today, we're discussing Bang versus Continental Resources, Inc., a North Dakota Supreme Court decision involving a dispute between the parties over a 2004 oil and gas lease and a saltwater pipeline. Here's what happened. The Bangs own the property in this dispute, including the surface and mineral estate. In 2004, John Bang executed an oil and gas lease with a company whose successor is Continental Resources. Because Continental holds the mineral lease, Continental informed the Bangs it would be constructing oil and gas facilities on the property, which included a saltwater pipeline corridor, well pads, and other associated facilities. The pipeline at issue would be transporting produced water away from the well site. The Bangs objected, and in 2022, filed a lawsuit against Continental alleging trespass and seeking an injunction and damages. Continental filed a countersuit and sought an injunction to prohibit interference with its operations and the installation of the pipeline. In 2024, the district court granted Continental partial summary judgment, ruling that Continental had the right to install a pipeline corridor with its attendant facilities and denying the Bangs' claims for trespass and injunction. The court relied on the language of the lease, which provided that the lessor granted the land for the purpose of mining, exploring, operating, and producing oil and gas, along with the rights of way and easements for laying pipelines and erection of structures to produce, save, and take care of said products. The court went on to state that the Bangs did not show that the transportation of production and salt water is not reasonably necessary to develop and produce minerals, and concluded that the lease's language may not explicitly allow saltwater pipelines, but the language did not forbid it, as the language was permissive, not restrictive. The Bangs appealed. The core issue on appeal was whether the lease's language allowed Continental to install the saltwater pipeline. The Bangs argued that the lower court erred in concluding that Continental had the right to install saltwater pipeline facilities on the property, and instead, the lease explicitly only grants an authority to lay a specific kind of pipeline, one that transports oil and gas, not produced water. In response, the North Dakota Supreme Court ruled that its prior decision in a previous case was relevant. In the preceding case, the same language was at issue as the language in the Bang case. The court held that the language was unambiguous and found that nothing in the lease's broad language indicated a desire to exclude the lessee's use of a temporary lay-flat hose, which it determined imposed a similar burden on the surface property as a pipeline used to transport oil, gas, or other products. Because nothing in the 2004 lease's broad language indicates a desire to exclude saltwater pipelines, just like nothing in the prior case's lease stated a desire to exclude lay-flat hoses, the North Dakota Supreme Court concluded the lease allowed Continental to install a saltwater pipeline on the property and upheld the district court's ruling. So why should you care? The acquisition, use, and disposal of water is becoming a larger problem for all operators, as more water is needed for larger fracs and more wastewater is being produced. It's important to stay abreast of how each state is ruling on all the different issues that are starting to arise from the use, production, and disposal of water. For another interesting case on the subject, check out episode 10, where we talk about the Cactus Water case in Texas. That's it for this case law update. I'd like to thank Francis Warden and Kanika Draksharam, law clerks in our Denver and Houston offices, for their help on this update. I hope you found this episode informative. Thanks for listening.